The house was too quiet for a weekday afternoon, and that was the first thing Emily Harper noticed when she stepped inside. The air felt heavy, like something important had already happened, and the walls were still holding their breath. Emily set her bag down slowly, listening. No music played. No television murmured in the background. Only voices, low, tense. And coming from the living room, Emily had come home early from college in Michigan, hoping to surprise her parents in their Ohio home. She had imagined hugs, questions, her mother's warm smile. Instead, she stood frozen in the hallway, her heart beating too fast as the voices grew clearer. Her father's voice, David Harper, sounded nervous. Nothing like the confident man who coached high school basketball and joked at family dinners. The woman speaking to him sounded familiar too, and that realization made Emily's stomach tighten. She took one step forward, then another, not because she wanted to spy, but because her body refused to turn away from the edge of the hallway. She saw them. Her father sat on the couch, leaning forward, his hands clasped together. Across from him sat Karen Miller, a woman Emily had seen many times before. She was a friend of the family, someone who attended barbecues and smiled politely at Emily's mother. Someone her mother trusted. They were too close, not touching, but close enough that the space between them felt wrong. Karen's eyes were soft in a way Emily had never seen before. And David's face held an expression Emily didn't recognize, fear mixed with longing. Then, David looked up. The moment their eyes met, everything stopped. Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. Her body went cold like the truth had knocked the air out of her lungs. David stood up too fast, the movement clumsy, guilty. "Emily," he said, his voice breaking. "I can explain." But explanations meant nothing anymore. Emily turned and walked out of the house, her hands shaking as she reached her car. She sat behind the wheel for a long time without starting the engine. Her thoughts felt tangled, sharp, and painful. She loved her father. She trusted him. And now that trust lay shattered, scattered in ways she didn't know how to gather. That night, she came back home. Her mother, Laura Harper, was in the kitchen, humming softly while preparing dinner. The normalcy hurt more than anger would have. Laura smiled when she saw Emily, asked about the drive, asked if she was hungry. Emily nodded, answered in short sentences, her throat tight. Dinner passed like a performance. David barely spoke. Laura noticed but didn't press. Emily kept her eyes on her plate, every bite tasting like guilt. Later, the house grew quiet again. David knocked on Emily's bedroom door. "Please," he said once she opened it. His eyes were red. "I messed up. I know I did. But your mother, she can't find out like this." Emily stared at him, disbelief mixing with sadness. "You're asking me to lie?" she said quietly. "I'm asking you to give me time," he replied. "I'll fix this, I promise." Promises felt weak now, but Emily nodded. Not because she agreed, but because she didn't know how to say no. He was still her father, the man who taught her how to ride a bike, who stayed up late helping with school projects. Loving him didn't stop just because he had done something terrible. Days passed. Emily stayed in the house, moving carefully, like she was afraid any wrong step would expose the truth. Her mother laughed at small things, folded laundry, asked Emily about her classes. Every smile felt like a knife. Emily watched Laura closely, wondering how someone so strong could be so unaware. Or maybe Laura sensed something and chose not to see it. Emily didn't know which was worse. The guilt grew heavier each morning. One afternoon, Laura asked Emily to help clean the garage. As they worked side by side, Laura spoke casually about family, about how important honesty was. Emily's hands trembled as she held a box of old photos. She wanted to confess. She wanted the weight gone, but fear kept her silent. That evening, everything ended. Emily left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. When she came back, Laura was sitting at the table, the phone in her hands. Her face was pale, her eyes fixed on the screen. Emily knew instantly. Laura looked up. Slowly. How long? She asked. Emily felt her knees weaken. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. Laura closed her eyes, breathing deeply, as if steadying herself. You knew, she said, not as a question, but as a statement. Emily nodded. Tears finally spilling over. Laura didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. That frightened Emily more than shouting ever could. Laura stood, walked to the window, and stared out into the dark. I need space, Laura said, after a long moment, from both of you. That night, Laura asked David to leave the house. There was no argument, no dramatic scene. Just a quiet packing of bags and a door closing softly behind him. The sound echoed through the house, final and painful. Emily sat alone in her room, her heart pounding. She felt like she had lost both parents at once. The family she knew no longer existed. Later, Laura came to Emily's door. I loved him, Laura said calmly. And you chose to protect him. Emily tried to speak, but no words came. Laura looked at her daughter with sadness, not hatred. Love without truth becomes betrayal, she said. Remember that? She walked away, leaving Emily alone with the lesson she never wanted to learn. And in that quiet house, with the truth finally exposed, Emily understood something she would never forget. Being caught was only the beginning. The morning after David left, the house felt empty in a way Emily had never known. It wasn't just quiet, it felt hollow, like something living had been removed. Emily woke up early and lay still, listening for sounds that didn't come. Footsteps, no voices. It's only the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the clock. Laura was already awake. She sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring into nothing. Her face looked older, but also firmer, like something inside her had settled into place. When Emily entered, Laura didn't look up. I'm not angry, Laura said. I'm disappointed, and that lasts longer. Emily swallowed hard. She waited for punishment, for shouting, for tears. None came. Instead, Laura stood and began, moving through the house, opening windows, letting in cold air. She packed away family photos from the living room shelf. She folded David's forgotten jacket and placed it in a box. Every movement was calm, controlled, final. By afternoon, Laura handed Emily an envelope. Open it, she said. Inside were papers, program details, dates, a boarding pass, a semester away, program in Vermont, housing included, classes transferable. Everything arranged. You're sending me away. Emily asked, shocked. I'm giving you space, Laura replied, and time to understand what silence costs. Emily wanted to argue, but the truth stopped her. She had stayed silent. She had chosen comfort over honesty. Laura wasn't pushing her away. She was pushing her forward. 2 weeks later, Emily stood on a bus platform with one suitcase and a heart full of regret. Laura hugged her, firm and brief. Learn who you are, Laura said, not who you protect. The bus pulled away, and Emily watched her mother grow smaller through the window, unsure if things would ever feel the same again. Vermont was quiet in a different way. Wide roads, bare trees, small towns that moved slowly. Emily stayed in a shared house near a community college campus. Her roommates were strangers who didn't know her past. That felt like relief. Classes were intense but grounding. Literature, ethics, social psychology. Words about truth and choice followed her. Everywhere. She couldn't escape them, and slowly she stopped trying. One evening, she met Noah Bennett at a campus cafe. He was kind, calm, with a soft laugh and thoughtful eyes. They talked about books, about homes they missed, about mistakes they wished they could undo. Emily didn't tell him everything, but she told him enough. With Noah, there were no secrets. When she felt something grow between them, she didn't hide it or deny it. She learned how honesty felt when it wasn't forced, when it was chosen. Back in Ohio, Laura was changing too. She joined a local walking group, something she had never done before. She filled her evenings with activity, not to distract herself, but to rebuild rhythm. She stopped waiting for David to call. When he did, weeks later, she listened calmly and told him she needed distance. Real distance, not silence filled with lies. At a neighborhood fundraiser, Laura met Mark Reynolds. He was recently widowed, gentle, reserved. Their first conversations were simple, almost awkward. Coffee led to walks. Walks led to dinners. Nothing rushed. Nothing hidden. Laura felt something warm again, but this time it came without fear. Months passed. Emily returned home in spring. The house looked different, lighter. New curtains, fresh. Paint, the air no longer felt trapped. Laura stood in the doorway as Emily stepped inside. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Laura hugged her. "I forgive you," Laura said quietly. Not because it was easy, because holding pain forever only breaks more things. Emily cried into her mother's shoulder, the weight she carried finally lifting. Later, they sat together, talking honestly for the first time. About love, about failure, about strength. David remained part of the past. He called sometimes. Emily spoke to him, but boundaries existed now, clear ones. Laura continued seeing Mark, slowly, carefully. Emily watched her mother smile again and felt relief, not guilt. The family was no longer what it had been, but it was real. And for the first time, truth lived there without fear.